Heisei Godzilla has always been one of my overall favorite Godzillas, probably because I grew up with him more than the Showa era itself here. But nevertheless, I find it interesting how now it's actually more debatable whether or not he's stronger than the Marvel Godzilla, which has more evidence and confirmations that it's Showa, with the fact that Heisei has always been greater than Showa. And this actually led me to actually make this video on, is Heisei Godzilla Outerversal? And this is where we actually get the, well, crux of this video. Is he Outerversal? Does he scale to these feats? How does Showa really take part in all this? And are we wrong or are we actually right? But hey, this is Legendary Grimlock. Please comment down below, like and subscribe and share with your friends. And let's begin with this possibly long scaling video. Now, the first section we are going to have to talk about here is the Showa era scaling. Love this artwork, by the way, just absolutely great. By the way, I am going to make a what if for the Showa era very soon, throwing in another kaiju. But without further ado, let's begin. So Showa's scaling is actually pretty simple here. The start off, or at least the base level of Showa, would actually be universal. He gets to this level because of his feats along with the likes of Zone Fighter. Dear God, help them monsters. And this is because Zone Fighter is actually able to use his abilities to actually harm fourth dimensional monsters known as the Terror Beasts, which are able to generate fields that actually hide them or make them intangible, I should say, excuse me, on a fourth dimensional level. So this means that Zone Fighter, who was able to destroy this, was actually capable of sparring and even training Godzilla to fight against stronger enemies like Gigan and Ghidorah, with Ghidorah even being stated to being one of his most powerful enemies. Now, if you want higher scaling for the Showa era, I am clearly not the person from that, because I'm just going to keep this video or keep this section short as it is here. So go ahead, head on to King of the Monster channel, go ahead and look at his Frieza versus Ghidorah video. Love it, by the way. And yeah, let's actually continue on here. So believe it or not, you do have arguments for higher level Showa here being multiversal in his own era. But what about the Marvel scaling, if you will? Well, believe it or not, the classic days of Marvel, or the classic run where he was in, is confirmed to take place at the end of Showa and at the beginning of Heisei. So it takes place in between those timelines. So essentially you could actually say he was turning into Heisei Godzilla at this moment, because again, they got beat up by Showa, the nicest one out of them. So this means that Showa Godzilla and again Marvel Godzilla are the same character. I guess he just, you know, just really cranky in that run. So it's just, it is what it is here. So that being said, this means Marvel Godzilla, once again, I have to remind people, because it's, you know, kind of hard for people to kind of grasp that Godzilla versus Marvel, even the classic days, is canon, even though this was stated years ago. But, you know, we still have people who say that, oh, this isn't canon, and they really don't provide evidence for why it's not, when we literally have director statements that characters, or that the writers, excuse me, literally have stated that this run is canon to the 616 verse and canon to the Showa era, with even writers stating that yes, this is exactly what it was. We're still using the same Godzilla that originally appeared in Marvel, and keep in mind, they're just simply using the up-to-date definition or up-to-date rendition of Marvel. So things like the Fallen Sun, Immortal Thor, etc., Phoenix Force users and stuff like that, you know, all still there. All right, and keep in mind, we still have to go over the feats. So whether you like it or not, this is canon to the Showa, or at least into the Godzilla verse in general. So Godzilla one-tapping the Hulk here in his classic days is actually impressive, considering the fact that classic in 2012 is really no different from each other. We have Hulk still being able to destroy things like Nightmare's Dimension, drawing blood from characters that can withstand the explosion of two universes, aka Hyperion 13034, and overpowering whole Avengers teams. They got characters like Hercules, who has lifted the heavens and overpowered his brother Ares on multiple occasions. Now, Ares, unfortunately, because he is one of my favorite of the godly entities of Marvel, is a jobber. Yeah, he jobs, but he does got some good feats. For example, being able to cut through Anansi, the spider god's attacks, the same Anansi who literally controls the narratives of every Spider-Man in the verse. Dear God, does that mean he makes Peter Parker's life suck on purpose? Oh my gosh, I never thought about that. And keep in mind, Ares himself has also been able to damage the Chaos King, someone who's actually destroyed 98% of the Marvel multiverse. So just some food for thought. Then we also had the time where Godzilla also was, able to fight against the likes of Thor. And Thor himself, as a youngster, as, everybody's favorite young YN out here, was casually destroying and tearing at the roots of Yggdrasil. Yggdrasil, containing the power of the 8th cosmos, which is a higher dimensional power. Then you also have the fact that Yggdrasil functions on a quantum reality as well. So you have everything in there that makes it its own miniature, if not its own multiverse in general, housing various realms in there, and Thor is able to harm that as well. Then you also have the fact that Showa Godzilla is just, massively above this now. You could even say it's an upgrade compared to now. So let's actually talk about Godzilla destroys the Marvel Universe, or his current Godzilla feats, I should say. For starters, he was actually confirmed that if he tried to take Earth, Galactus would be in for a fight. Yeah, so this means Godzilla would have gave Galactus, a run for his money and literally had to tell him, hey, you're going to have to put in that work, little man. Ain't no way you getting out of this one for free. Then with Fin Fang Foom, he actually beat him so bad that S.H.I.E.L.D. had to pull him away from the fight. And his leg was broken. And that's how bad Godzilla beat him. Keep in mind, while Fin Fang Foom is, again, a jobber, when that man had so much potential as Marvel's actual Godzilla, if you guys get what I mean. Fin Fang Foom is still capable of thrashing characters like Terrax, who is a casual herald of Galactus, and Drax the Destroyer, who's been able to fight against the likes of Thanos and even Gladiator. Keep in mind, he's also back to his classic days self as well, so he's incredibly powerful. Then we also have the feat that honestly broke the internet, or at least got into the Hulk versus Godzilla argument, this being the Thor feat. Godzilla being able to one-shot immortal Thor with a tail slap. Keep in mind, Thor saw him, Thor looked him dead in his eye, and he still got smacked. Quite casually. And then you have the fact that when Thor came back, and keep in mind, Thor was knocked out for a good minute, Captain Marvel had to get him, he comes back with Fin Fang Foom, who, believe it or not, actually does get a good blow. But again, all he does is piss off Godzilla enough to use that atomic breath, and gets one-shotted as well. It's absolutely funny, in my opinion, to talk about immortal Thor himself, with this version, or this current state of Thor, being the most powerful he's ever really been. In all honesty, he's got everything. He's got his mother's blessing of Gaia's blessing and stuff like that. He's got, the full power of the Odin Force, some of the power cosmic likely still in him because he was using it to resurrect Galactus. He's been able to fight against the World Serpent, even surpassing his sister Angela, who was originally the Queen of Hell, able to fight against characters like Hela. However, one of the few feats I think is far more impressive. I mean, I don't even know why they even had Spider-Man's Rogues Gallery fighting him when they literally could have just had Avengers, X-Men, and Fantastic Four do it. Oh wait, I forgot he sent the Fantastic Four to the negative zone. But one of the few feats I will be talking about is the fact that Godzilla, with a roar, mind you, shook the entirety of the main 616 universe, because he was pissed off that they BFR'd him to the astral plane, which is one of the highest points in the Marvel multiverse. So not only did Godzilla literally get BFR'd to one of the highest planes in Marvel, he also shook it with a roar. There's also the fact that he's immune to Wanda's hexes. Now keep in mind, Wanda herself is, at this point, you could probably say like top 2, top 3 strongest sorcerers on the planet. Her powers have been able to hurt Skyfather level beings like Nyx, who just straight up snapped Zeus's neck like it was nothing. Keep in mind, this was Zeus in his prime. And then you also have the fact that she's able to match the likes of Griever in raw power, and was able to destroy her creatures quite casually, mind you. And keep in mind, Griever's creatures were powered up by Molecule Man after Griever legit like restrained this man and turned them into a power battery for her creatures. And, well, essentially giving them Molecule Man's raw power, right? And keep in mind, Griever was also able to defeat Silver Surfer Black, who was able to match Null in combat. And it's very possible he could have likely fought him again the same way. Then we also have the fact that she ate Chthon, a Hell Lord. And Wanda at that point would be at her strongest, considering the fact that she did scatter Griever's essence across the Marvel multiverse. So not only does Godzilla like surpass these guys, but we also have statements for another monster, that being Showa King Ghidorah. Now, this is important because Showa King Ghidorah would actually be the strongest in the Showa era, actually being confirmed to be so powerful that Godzilla was like afraid of him and would never fight him in a one-on-one. So Godzilla would actually like wait for help in this one. Crazy how he's doing the thing that the Z fighters would never do, which is wait for Goku. And then you have the fact that not only is he able to fight against these guys, but there are other monsters in the verse that are still capable of hurting him, like Varin, Anguirus, Gorosaurus, and obviously Godzilla himself, right? And this is actually pretty important because we know in the Fantastic Four one, or Godzilla vs. Fantastic Four, which took place during the Classic Days era due to the time period or the timestamp in the comic as well. The fact that Galactus was confident that King Ghidorah could have taken out Earth and even annihilate its resources so that he could heal. So this means that Ghidorah himself is actually capable of beating a large majority of the heroes, if not all of the heroes in that era. Keep in mind, he is a team buster, so it wouldn't be far-fetched to say. Keep in mind, characters that at that time would be like characters like Thor, Hercules, Man-Thing, Hulk, Juggernaut, you know, characters of that caliber. And yet, Showa Godzilla is able to beat all of them, along with the likes of King Ghidorah and the rest of his kaiju who would scale off of that. So now that we're done here, let's talk about Heisei's superiority. Now, Heisei's superiority to Showa honestly isn't going to be that long. And sorry if it isn't, but again, this is some pretty simple stuff here. It's kind of obvious. Heisei Godzilla has multiple statements, and we're going to run through them, that he is superior to the end of series Showa. Now, you might say, okay, how does it pertain to the Marvel comics and how Showa is much stronger than what he was in canon, even though it is canon to the Showa and Heisei timeline, which means that the end of series for Showa would actually be him going up against the Avengers when he's just having a pretty bad day, in all honesty. And then you have the fact that that means the Heisei era starts right after, like canonically in order, would start right after Godzilla in Marvel, or Godzilla versus the Avengers and stuff like that. And we also have more statements that Biolate would basically mess up and just straight up clap Showa Gigan. Then you have Larva, Batra, and Megalon actually being a good fight, but when he goes into his adult form, he straight up just manhandles him. Then you have Mecha King Ghidorah being able to straight up just body the likes of Mecha Godzilla. Now, you might want to ask yourself, Legendary, how much of an increase is this? Well, here's the thing, right? Showa and, oh, sorry, not Showa. Heisei actually gets 10 times increases, which are known to be one-shot increases. Now, being able to one-shot somebody in, like, fictional battles and stuff like that, probably even real-life battles, I'm not sure. I ain't really seen too many people get one-shotted in a fight, but if you get one-shot in the fight, I feel like you got some stuff you need to do. Keep in mind that characters in the Heisei era are like 10 times stronger than their opponents. So someone like Mogira was actually able to one-shot the likes of Super Mecha Godzilla 2, who was able to go toe-to-toe with Godzilla and almost beat him until he got his Rodan power up and increase and then got straight up destroyed. So this newly rebuilt Mecha Godzilla, mind you, more stronger than what he was before, was one-shotted by Mogira, who is 10 times, who would have a 10 times increase in power. And yet Godzilla went on to handle Space Godzilla when Mogira struggled to. I feel like that says a lot. So not only would Heisei have a significant increase, the guidebook also states he's actually 100 times stronger than the likes of the end of Showa, which is absolutely ridiculous considering the fact that the strongest character at the end of Showa would be Ghidorah, who, as I stated earlier, has some pretty crazy statements coming from the Marvel run as well as his Showa era run, with him being above all of Earth's kaiju. Meaning that if you throw Heisei into the Showa era and replace, or pretty much just throw him in there, and have King Ghidorah and all of the Earth Defenders pretty much fight him, he would one-shot every single one of them and go about his day. But that's going to end off here, and now we can actually get into the Heisei cosmology. Now, Heisei's cosmology is actually not that hard to understand. It's actually a combination of two different pantheons. For starters, let's talk about this simple. The Godzilla multiverse is actually one of the easiest things to understand. Every Godzilla is its own universe, making up a greater multiverse in general. You see, every Godzilla we see, -1, Shin, Earth, Ultima, Heisei, Showa, and, Ice, and so on and so forth, it's just simply a Godzilla branching off from the original, okay? Each timeline kind of fits in its own way and kind of just adds on to the ever-expanding Godzilla multiverse. This would probably even include the comic Godzilla as well. But I know what y'all want. I know what y'all came here for. Y'all ain't come here to hear about all that. Y'all came here to hear about the good stuff, right? The Hinduism and Japanese mythology as well. But let's talk about it. So, believe it or not, Godzilla has small trace amounts of the Cthulhu mythos a part of it, especially with some of the ways the franchise does works. For starters, the universe itself is infinite in size, with the Earth itself actually containing universal levels of power as stated in Leo Mothra. So these things are also contained inside of other religions and beliefs, such as the likes of Hinduism. Now, not going to get all religious and stuff like that here, but let's talk about this here. The gods that actually exist in the Godzilla cosmology would include one of the few deities, the likes of Shiva, who is a very powerful, if not the highest form, or highest being, in the Hinduism mythology. Hinduism is all about dualities, life and death, darkness and light, hope and despair. All of these things kind of get juggled into one, okay? However, we also know that it doesn't stop there. You see, Yamato no Orochi and Utsuno Ikuzagami are also Japanese deities, as well as Susanoo and Amaterasu, who are all, again, Japanese deities, with Susanoo being a war god and Amaterasu being a sun goddess herself. So not only would these trace amounts of Hinduism would be in there, you could likely also add Buddhism to the cosmology, which wouldn't be a bad thing either, as Buddhism itself dives into spirituality and infinite dimensional layers, and even being around the boundless tiers in terms of scaling, depending on how much is in it. But considering the fact that Orochi and Utsuno Ikuzagami are only able to really keep up with a base Godzilla until he gets boosted, and then he actually just starts pulling out his belt and just starts tearing them up. He basically beats them. Now, Ikuzagami is close to God in terms of likely power and status as well. And with the gods in the Godzilla cosmology being beings like Shiva and likely other Hindu and Japanese gods kind of forming their own little neat little pantheon, if you will. This is actually pretty important, meaning that he would likely be above other gods like Kali, who I think is like somewhat close to Shiva, and then there's Ganesha, who's supposed to be one of the physically strongest of these gods as well. And Ikuzagami would outrank them, and Orochi would as well surpass them easily, as Utsuno actually needed a specific amp or a specific way to actually get the upper hand on the likes of Orochi. Keep in mind, Utsuno is actually has an ability, that has an ability. Utsuno has an ability, dear God. Utsuno has an ability that allows him to split time. Keep in mind, if we add the cosmology stuff here, both Hinduism and Buddhism, this means he's able to split time on an infinite dimensional level. Then you have Yamato no Orochi, who can actually use hyperspace to affect higher dimensions in there. There are some 4D cosmologies in the Godzilla as well, in the Heisei era as well, but obviously, they're just simply beyond them at that point. But then you also have entities like Amaterasu and Susanoo, who are again the embodiments of their own respective, I guess you could say, deity signs, if you will. With Amaterasu embodying things like the sun, meaning she would embody light. Susanoo embodying war itself, meaning he would also embody, I guess you could say, the concept of war itself. Keep in mind, Godzilla really would have no problem destroying like conceptual beings, considering the fact that Orochi is literally confirmed to be evil itself, and Utsuno is actually, the embodiment of the sun god himself and supposed to be the embodiment of hope, and with his status being close to God, even if you want to put it at the Christian God as well, creating universes and infinite stuff as well as concepts and everything. Again, not to be religious or anything, I am a Christian, but again, this is not about any of that here. It's really about the scale we're talking about here. But this also means that Godzilla's pantheon would likely look like the previous photo with Utsuno, Shiva, Orochi, and so on and so forth. It's also likely that Izanami and Raijin as well is in there. There's also the possibility for Kujira as well existing in the Godzilla cosmology. I wouldn't push anything past the Godzilla cosmology and all the deities that honestly should exist here, considering the fact that it is a small combination of Hinduism and even other Japanese folklore within it. So Godzilla himself also containing small trace elements of the Cthulhu mythos, as well as kind of stated here, as it's somewhat added on to kind of explain the cosmology, means that Godzilla would likely have infinite dimensional multiverses that likely negate the properties of math and physics itself. But again, I wouldn't be surprised about that, considering Godzilla has kind of given the middle finger to physics on multiple occasions. I mean, Showa himself literally defies physics. We're not even going to get into the fact that this man flew with his atomic breath and then did a gravity defying drop kick, right? And even then, like I said earlier, you have the entirety of the Godzilla multiverse. Now, you could also likely use the Power Rangers crossover to continue the higher levels of scaling here. But considering the fact that I kind of want to keep that towards more IDW and Godzilla and Hell stuff, where it doesn't feel like it should be a part of Heisei and everything, even though what I have right now is pretty good to get him to Outerversal, we still have to continue on. So, believe it or not, because of his pantheon having things like Hinduism and some Japanese folklore, which dives into many dualities, including the things like of chaos and order, hope and despair and stuff like that, you could easily get base Heisei Godzilla to Outerversal. However, we're not done just yet. So now we reach the fun part. Probably the shortest part, but again, the fun part nevertheless. The super forms. How strong is Heisei at his two peaks, right? Starting off with the more familiar one, Burning Godzilla. Burning Godzilla is literally infinite power itself. Oh no, I'm not kidding. This dude gets stronger and stronger until he blows up. That's the idea of Burning Godzilla. He got so many power-ups in such a short span of time. Bro's about to pop like a balloon. And then we have Destroyer, confirmed to be the strongest enemy that Godzilla has ever faced. So keep in mind, if Godzilla is getting infinitely stronger, meaning he surpassed the levels of when he was fighting against Space Godzilla over leaps and bounds, right? Destroyer is strong enough to go with someone, or go blow to blow with someone who's infinitely stronger than what he was. And keep in mind, Godzilla, once again, is over 200, if not, or possibly 100 times stronger than his Showa counterpart. Yeah, it's either 100 or 200 if I remember correctly. And the funny part is here, Destroyer also absorbed his power, meaning stacking infinity upon infinity, and yet Godzilla managed to get stronger to the point where he straight up killed Destroyer. I want y'all to think about that real quick. He surpassed someone who absorbed his power, which is infinite at this point, and then he grew stronger to the point where he straight up bodied and ultimately killed Destroyer and still had enough energy to give his son some of his life force. I'm not even going to begin to comprehend just how powerful that is. And keep in mind, everything was on overdrive. His atomic energy on overdrive. His healing factor was also on overdrive to the point where he could not even be cut in half by Destroyer, because the moment it happened, he simply regenerated it. Meaning that when Destroyer actually, cut him down the waist, yeah, it cut him in half, but it did so at such a fast level, or his healing factor basically overreacted and pretty much just said, nah, see, he'll be fine. Yeah, let's just keep this going. His healing factor just overdid it. But then you have Super Godzilla. Basically, if Godzilla kinda had a much stronger, a much tougher body, if you will, right? So surpassing the levels of his Space Godzilla counterpart, and possibly on par with his burning form, but I would probably say it's a bit stronger. And this is a Godzilla that was given Ghidorah cells during a fight with Mecha King Ghidorah. So you have Godzilla's power on top of Ghidorah's power. Both of them are clearly stronger and can get stronger as well. So combine everything Ghidorah has done with everything Godzilla has done, stacking these two behemoths on top of each other, and considering what I said for Ghidorah earlier, with him being the strongest out of his Showa era counterpart, or with his Showa era counterpart, and then again we know Heisei is stronger than Showa by a significant amount here, and Ghidorah is also noted to be stronger than his Showa counterpart, meaning if you put him in front of his Showa counterpart and all the Earth defenders and stuff like that, he would body him. Then you also have beings like the Leo Mothra as well, which really can't do anything to the Heisei, kaiju as well, even though he is, also in the Heisei era as well, with beings like Dagara, Desi Ghidorah, and Grand King Ghidorah, all being able to destroy the Earth, the same Earth that contains the literal life energy of the universe itself here. So again, infinite dimensional levels of energy, which again, I kind of explained earlier with the whole Hinduism and Japanese mythology and stuff like that. So, these guys would definitely be no match for Yamato no Orochi, but they are also a nice scaling point to add on as well, as they also are a part of the Heisei verse. But I want y'all to think about something, right? As I'm about to explain the next threat very quickly. I want you to think about everything Space Godzilla has done. Everything Biolate, Ghidorah, Mothra, Batra, Rodan, Super Mecha Godzilla, Yamato no Orochi, Utsuno Iku Zagami. All of these gods, right? Deities, demigods even. I want you to think about all the stuff that they done. Them being conceptual beings that embody what they stand for, right? I want you to think about all they done, right? And the fact that Godzilla can beat them. And Destroyer can also beat them, right? Burning can beat them. But I want you to think, if this is important, then why is there a monster that surpasses even that. Yeah, there is a monster. His name is Bagan. He was so strong and so powerful that Godzilla couldn't even stop him at the current stage he was at. And ultimately needed the Ghidorah cells to actually be able to beat Bagan. However, Bagan was so powerful, so dangerous, right? You could possibly call him the strongest Godzilla villain ever. But again, unfortunately, he doesn't have that many appearances to get that recognition as he should. But his fight with Super Godzilla was so immense and so powerful, or so tough, that Super Godzilla himself could only high diff him. And I mean high diff, like it was still a close call, despite the boost in power. A significant boost in power, I might say. So, depending on how you look at it, you actually have Heisei Godzilla at Outerversal. His scaling is there, his statements backing it up, the proof already pretty much presented to you guys, and his cosmology also adds on to it. So with that being said, I think Heisei Godzilla can easily be scaled to Outerversal this way if you want to. But hey, you guys can use it or not. Just depends. This for me was just strictly fun, but again, you can use it. But yeah, that's gonna be all today, you guys. Please comment down below, like and subscribe and share with your friends. This is Legendary Grimlock, and I hope you guys have a blessed day.